Hello, everybody. Get off my lawn cards. I'm Dan. Welcome in. And today I want to talk about the sports card bubble that we're in right now and how to navigate it, and a little bit of historical background as well, how we came to this. And then also, like I said, how to kind of steer yourself through this bubble to enjoy the hobby. And then I also think, to make some money on it too. Um, so we're going to look at those things. This video, I got the idea for this video from a book that I was reading called The Psychology of Money, and written by Morgan Housel. I would recommend it to anybody. It's a book that you can get on eBay for like $10 or less. There's plenty of copies of it. And Housel has a chapter in this book about money that deals with economic bubbles. And he has a theory as to what causes economic bubbles and then what eventually pops economic bubbles. And I think, just based on reading that book and, as I go to shows and what I see, I think that we're in a bubble, and I think eventually the bubble is going to pop. And so we're going to look at that a little bit today. What Housel writes about, I think, is really applicable to the sports card bubble. And so we're going to take a look at it. Okay, part one, the situation. How did we get to where we're at right now in the sports card game? And then also, TCG is, I think, in the same neighborhood. Cards have gone up steadily after the COVID card bubble burst. Temporarily burst. There was kind of a blip. People were buying up and selling cards during COVID. COVID ends. There was kind of the bubble there. Cards kind of came back down to earth. Now we're back into another bubble that is making COVID look very small by comparison. According to Housel's theory, the psychology of money here, bubbles form when new people enter a market with different motives, or he calls it playing a different game, than the experienced people in that market. Now, I've been collecting cards for a long time. Most people that I run into in shows are, veteran collectors. And I know when I got started in the 1980s, I didn't collect baseball cards to make money. I collected baseball cards because I liked players. I don't think I ever sold a card in the 1980s. I think I just kind of collected. Never really gave it much thought. If you collected during the 1980s, you were probably in the same neighborhood. Heck, in the 1990s, early 90s, you were probably buying to collect. Now we have a lot of people that have entered the market. Maybe some of them because they like the sports or they're like TCG, let's say. But there's also a lot of people that have come into the hobby that are looking to make money off the hobby. They're looking to cash in. And so the new people that are in are playing a different game than the people that have been in the hobby for a long time. And you can see that at any show that you go to. That's probably where you see it more than, let's say, in eBay. Part two, the noobs, the new people in the hobby. I mentioned a little bit in part one, but you have a lot of new people that have come into the hobby, people with lots and lots of money. There is more money in the hobby than there has ever been. I mean, you have people that are in Wall Street investors, hedge fund owners, big businessmen that are coming in and funding cards. And there is even an investment group that has gotten involved with like a Cards HQ. That's Jeff Wilson's outfit there. And so there are billions of dollars floating around in the hobby, whether it's sports cards, whether it's TCG. There is just a lot of money. I'm not 100% sure where the money has come from. You have a lot of wealthy people. I have theories. I think there's a lot of regular folks that have gotten into the hobby because they're spending money that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they would have invested in things like homes. But the price of homes have gone up so much that it's really priced a lot of people out. And so what are these people spending on instead of mortgages and down payments? Some of them are probably investing in sports cars. I have a theory that some people probably got out of Bitcoin and are putting their money into sports cards, TCG cards, etc. I think there's a lot of people, and if you watch content, you know that this is true, where you have a lot of people that buy sports cards almost like lottery tickets, that they're looking for that one life-changing hit that's going to get them on the map. And, some people think that's crazy, but to these people, that's their ticket out. I think there's just lots of money coming in, and all these, new people coming in. Some of them are in it for the love of the game. Some of it are in it for the love of the dollar. And during COVID, we saw in the years after COVID, a lot of people that were just in it for the money. Some of those people kind of dipped out and didn't really say, I think there's some people that really lost their rear ends and kind of slinked out of the hobby at that time. But now we're seeing, like I said, a comeback that is just unbelievable. It's a huge influx of money. Part 3, getting out while the getting's good. I think there has to be a time where if you have certain cards, that if a number comes up for your card, like how valuable it is, that you almost have to cash out. I mean, you're talking like huge amounts of money for certain cards. I was listening to a Sports Card Nonsense podcast, and Mike Geo, who's kind of the card expert in the podcast, his relative Jesse is kind of the host, and he does non-sports cards. But anyways, Mike Geo was talking about this, and I thought it was really good. It made a lot of sense to me that when you're looking to sell a card, you are seldom going to time the market exactly right. He was talking about Wemby Prism Silvers during the playoffs. There's a time where you just say, what is the number where I have to sell this card? If you buy a card for a certain amount and just keeps going up and up and up, at what point do you sell? Don't fear maxing out your card's value. Like, if you make a lot of money with it, that should be the goal. If you're looking to sell, if it's a PC, then it doesn't matter. You enjoy the card. Now, recently, when I was at the Legends show, I did a video about that a few days ago. I took a Steph Curry Bowman rookie with me. It's PSA 9. It's in the picture here. And I just saw that card growing in value. And I had very little money in it. I have had that card since Curry's rookie year. I bought a lot of Currys during that time. And that's one that I bought. And then much later got graded PSA 9. And like I said, I saw that number just keep going up and up and up. And I did not have a lot of money in it. And I'm just like, well, this is a really good time to sell. So I sold that card last weekend at the Legend show. Generally, I share what I pay for things and stuff. In this case, I'll just say this. I sold that Steph Curry Bowman for fair market value. And I have not looked back. I have not regretted it since. I thought, it was a really fair sale. And sometimes, you know, take advantage of irrational, like quirks, irrational sales, things that a week ago made no sense, but now because of markets just popping up out of nowhere, they're excellent times to make money on cards that maybe you didn't have any attachment to, but you can use that money to buy into things that you really want, like PC type stuff. And I recently had that happen with a card that I found out about on Twitter. Okay. This is the card. It is a 2009-10 Upper Deck, now appearing Michael Jordan. And Upper Deck made a subset that year that were like fake movie posters that involved NBA stars. You know, you had Dwight Howard, I remember. I think Kevin Garnett. I don't remember all the people. There was about 20 cards in that. And there was a Jordan. And it's kind of like the Scarface design, Scarface movie poster design. And somebody put on Twitter that, hey, I was going through a box of mine and I found this and I couldn't believe what it sold on eBay. And so I was like, okay, well, what did it sell on eBay? $20, $30. I looked, it was hundreds of dollars. I was like, wow. So the second thing I did was, do I have one of those? And I liked that subset at the time. I thought they were just kind of cool cards. So I went to one of my boxes, like the ones behind me there, and I have things in alphabetical order so I could find my Jordans easily. And I found that card. And I put it on eBay, and within 2 days, I sold it for hundreds of dollars. This was a card I probably paid $1 for at a show, 15 years ago or something. And, I had no attachment to it. It was an irrational market blip quirk. And so I couldn't get that card out fast enough. And, I can use that money now to buy lots of cool cards with basically free money. Money I found, like, in my couch cushion, so to speak. Okay, so now what you can do also, and I might do this with that Curry Bowman that I sold, is you can buy back into that card. And, if you don't know what buying back means, it just means, hey, I sold a card for X amount of dollars and I can buy one maybe down the road cheaper, or buy a lesser grade. The Curry was a PSA 9. Maybe let's say down the road, if I want that card, if a PSA 7 comes up and I, maybe pay half of that, what I got for mine, I still have the card and I also have a lot of cash in my pocket. So that's something I would recommend as well. Now, that might not happen. This bubble might just keep going and expanding, and those cards might be out of sight. So don't think like it's automatic that you're just going to be able to buy back in. Especially, like if the bubble keeps expanding or it's a very low numbered card. The Curry is like to 2009, I believe, that one. So chances are I could buy back in. We'll see. Now, getting out while the getting's good, sometimes you have bad sells where you sell cards way too soon and the market keeps going. I am guilty of that. All right. And I will give you this story. About 10 years ago, I was laid off for my job. And, I wanted to make some extra money. And that's kind of when I learned how to sell on eBay. I'd been buying on eBay for a long time, but I was just like, I want to make money to help pay my bills so I don't have to dip into savings and, what's out there to sell. Well, at that time, Steph Curry rookies were starting to go in value. We're going way up in value. And so at the time, I'm not sure exactly how many I had. I had 12 or 13 Steph Curry Topps rookies. None of them were graded. I wasn't a big grading guy back then. I should have been. But my one regret is I sold all of my Currys except one. and I still have it. It's the one that was in the picture. It's a PSA 6. And that PSA 6 sells for over $1,000 right now. And I sold the Currys, and I made lots of money. I paid probably $1 or $2 a piece for those. I was selling them at the start for $40, and I think the last one I sold was maybe for $120. And so for me at the time, I'm like, hey, I'm getting 40 times what I paid for it. I'm getting 100 times what I paid for it. That's great. Imagine what they'd be worth now. You know, so one regret I have, but it paid my bills for a month selling those Currys. And so, you know, things happen that were good after that and all that, but, you know, you lose out on those Currys. So that was a bad sell. You know, getting out while the getting's good. Sometimes you don't know how good it's going to be. There's also bad holds. And my brother gives me a lot of flack for this one. A few years ago, I bought this card. Deshaun Watson, Select, Silver Rookie. It's concourse level, PSA 10. And I paid like $20 for it at the National. And that card zoomed up because he was really good with the Texans. Then he got traded to the Browns. And I'm like, man, this guy is like, if he goes to Cleveland and he is the guy, that, you know, the card at the time was worth like $250, $300, I think. Something like that. I don't remember exactly, but like, that card is gonna be terrific. And my brother actually, I think, had one. He sold his, and he got out when the getting was really good. And my hold was really terrible, because the card has gone down a lot since. I think it was unsellable for a long time. I noticed though that recently on eBay, a couple copies have sold for like $50. So I'm probably going to put mine on there, but I had a picture of it, so I will probably sell that card. If you're interested in a Deshaun Watson and, you know, $50, it's yours. So getting out while the getting's good, you never know exactly when the market is at its best. You might think it is, and, you know, you sell too early. But if you're making big money, I mean, I could have made a lot more with those Currys. But there's also times where you're just like, oh, this is, you know, this card is going to be so great. And then an injury happens, or, you know, with Deshaun Watson, injuries, getting into trouble, lots of problems. So getting out while the getting's good, you're never really sure, but there's times where you can live with it either way. Okay, part 4 of the finale. What will pop the bubble? And almost as importantly, when? When will the bubble pop? We're never really sure. That's kind of the, you know, the unknown, the great unknown. It's true for something like stocks as well. I think right now we have a bubble in sports cards for sure, speaking on experience. I think TCG has some bubbles. I think TCG is really strong just by going to shows. But I think there are certain cards that are very, let's say, bubble-icious right now. According to Housel, older investors eventually will start playing the same game as the noobs, the new people that are in. And then the game changes. And I can speak from experience on this. Like I said, throughout the 80s, throughout the 90s, even when I came back to the hobby after a while out in 2007, 08, I didn't buy cards to flip. I didn't buy cards to say, oh, I'm going to sell this card, you know, as soon as I get out of the show. I'm going to put it on eBay right now, actually. No, I never really did that. I started going to the Nationals when it was in Baltimore the last time. And I always just bought to like, hey, I like Paul George, or, I like, this Topps giveaway set, at the National. I just collect it. And, the Steph Curry stuff kind of got me into selling. And now I still PC stuff. I have I have a nice PC. You know, you can see some of the stuff in the background there. But I also have one eye when I go to shows on, hey, you know, I like that card, but if I can get, you know, a certain amount of money, like more than I pay for it, I'm not against selling it either. You know, because then I can sell it and make money to buy bigger stuff. And that's, I think, what's happened with the market. I think you have even older collectors are like, hey, you know, I can sell this and I can make money. And that's something that most older collectors never did. You know, people were just selling. And the game changes. And so I think you have this massive amount of cash that's in the hobby. What happens when a whole bunch of people cash out? What happens when they start hitting that number? You know, my collection, you know, a guy might say, oh, my collection's worth 50,000. You know, 5 years ago it was 6,000. Oh, I'm calling the local card shop and having them come in and take a look. You know, I think that's what's going to happen. And you have card companies, you know, the Tops, Fanatics, Top/Fanatics, they're pumping out as much product as they can. You know, some of these pop numbers, like, you know, hundreds of millions of cards from one issue, from one set. I mean, if they keep putting it out and people all of a sudden start cashing out, the bubble is going to pop. And that's when it's going to happen. With TCG, I just wanted to mention this one example. I'm not a TCG guy, but my brother kind of sent me down a rabbit hole on this particular card. This is it's called Van Gogh Pikachu. And I couldn't believe the pop report on this card. If you're not a TCG guy, this is something that'll blow your mind. If you're in TCG, you probably know this already. But this Pikachu Van Gogh, there are 47,000 PSA 10s. 47,000 PSA 10s of this card. That's more than twice of the Zion Williamson Prism, to give you an idea. And there was a lot of those Zions. Twice as many as Zion Prism PSA 10s. 47,000 of these, and they sell for $3,000 a piece. There's 47,000 of these out there, and they sell for $3,000. The total value just of PSA 10s of this card is $140+ million. Now, if I'm just looking at this, you know, from the outside, which I am, I'm not a TCG collector, but that just doesn't make sense. If there's 47,000 of them out there, there's a lot of them out there. How are they $3,000 a piece? How are they staying at $3,000 a piece? It's crazy to me. That bubble, you would think, would have to pop. I cannot think of a sports card that is even close to that neighborhood. I was thinking maybe Griffey's, but not even close. Not even the Griffey Upper Deck rookie is what I'm referring to. Not even close. $140 million. Incredible. Incredible. So, other things that could pop in this hobby that could cause the pop of the bubble in sports cards. You have a lot of young kids in the hobby that are not in it for collecting. They're in it to make money. I sold that Curry to a kid that was probably maybe a freshman or sophomore in high school, I think, if I had to guess. These people are in it just for the money. And the thing about young people, having taught for a long time, their attention spans are about that big. And, you know, when they get into a deal that's over their head, or, you know, the market slows, or something big comes along, they're out. They're going to be out fast. And that's going to cause a bubble. I think if the housing market comes back to normal, where there's more housing available and housing becomes cheaper and interest rates fall, you're going to have young adults getting out of the hobby, because a house is very expensive. Even if you can get a decent, affordable deal, you're always putting money into something. So I think that could cause the bubble to pop. I think this PSA shutdown might cause a temporary blip because all these new cards that are coming out, Topps Chrome Baseball and, different basketball releases and, football stuff's coming soon. It's going to be hard to grade that unless it's really high-end stuff. So I think there's a lot of things that potentially could pop the bubble. As far as when, doesn't look like there's any signs of stopping. I mean, sports card market is very healthy. We just went through a situation where, we had comparison numbers in March of this year was like 3 times what it was last year as far as sales go. It's just incredible. TCG market is at top of its game, excuse me, as well. And so there's a lot of potential things that could pop the bubble, and I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. I guess as I go to shows, I still see that shows are really strong. There's a lot of dealers. There's a lot of buyers. The National's going to say, I think, a lot also coming up in less than 2 months. Last year was organized chaos. It was fun. We were there for the whole time, and we're going to be there again in less than 2 months. And it's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen with sports cards and also the TCG market, because the TCG market is really, really hot. I mean, 2/3 of PSA submissions, TCG cards. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. If you have some ideas, put some comments down in the comments below. Ketos, thank you. And we'll see you down the trail.